Well, we are going to do intro to stats class. So I hope what you get from this class is a kind of understanding of how information and how you can interpret and try and get the truth from data, from information. And to be on the lookout for how people will manipulate you by giving you half truths, and that you are able to look at data and say, this information is missing something before I can make a valid judgment on how the conclusion that they're giving is valid or not. Before we get started, because my goal today is to go over the syllabus, to talk a little bit about Canvas, to talk a little bit about WebAssign, and then, you know, do a very basic intro after all of that to this class, the statistics in particular. We're going to look at the introduction to data and what it means. So I'm going to move over then and look at Canvas. So hopefully this is what you would see if you go into Canvas right now. Tell you what Canvas is and what Canvas isn't. Canvas is a resource. It's where you can go to get videos, to get information, to get other ways, other places to find things. It doesn't contain anything that you must do. It doesn't contain, for the most part, any assignments, except for when you're doing tests and so on. So that's a little bit different. What it does, however, contain is things that will help you. For instance, in this one here, there's a welcome that tells you a little bit about myself. Here's how to get used to Zoom, how to enroll in WebAssign, which is very important because that's where all your homework assignments are going to be. And here's a WebAssign schedule, which I'll talk about. So that would be inside this link. Inside this link, what you can see is all the various chapters. And if I click on this one, for instance, and then you click here, what you get are some videos that are made by me or by other people. And I'm keeping these ones because the ones on the left have actually been professionally captioned. And so you can actually read. So if you're one of those people who like to read rather than hear, you could use that version. If you click on this version, it's just a normal video. And these are just videos on topics to do with the statistics class. And they're there for you to help. And this one here, for instance, shows you how to get the mean and standard deviation using your TI-84. So that's probably a good point for me to talk about the equipment, the stuff you need. Obviously, since you're here, you've got the computer and hopefully the audio and the video sorted out. So that's kind of covered, right? So you know that. You really do need a TI-84, 83 kind of calculator. It's just very helpful, especially in the early chapters and just for general calculations later on. If you don't have one, you can loan, they're still free, I believe. So the college will loan you one. What you need to do is you need to contact the MESH office. I think Cheryl is the person you'll talk to. She's told me that she'd prefer it to be email now because people are in and not in the office, and it's kind of hard to, you know, if you do the phone, you might not get through to her. So if you email her, it's Cheryl. What's Cheryl's last name? I never use her last name. MESH office Cheryl. If you go to the MESH and you get Cheryl, email her and she'll arrange for you to pick it up. I think what she does is you just go to the office and she'll pass it through the window or something, you get one. So TI-84, good thing to have. There are other calculators that do the same job, and if you find one or you've got one that does it, that's fine as well. But I would suggest that you use a TI-84, because when I do things in class and I'm using the calculator, I'm going to be using my TI-84. There we go. So you'll be able to press the same buttons as me. So it has videos, which is kind of helpful, right? It's a thing that you should find useful. Well, that was weird. Something just fall. And they contain stuff on everything. Let's close this one off. This one is college resources. And all the kind of things that you can get from the college. Hopefully you'll have time to look at that. Here are some examples of solutions to tests and things that might or might not be useful. Here is this link here. I'll click on it. It's a kind of biggie. There's our class every day you come. And then here, they're empty right now, but this is where I'm going to be putting all the Zoom lessons, including this one. So if you miss a Wednesday and you want, what did I miss? You would go to this and it would say Wednesday and you'd click on the video and you would get it. So I'm going to kind of formally ask you. I'm asking for your permission to send these Zooms onto Canvas so that you can use them. So if any of you have any issues, don't want their, the picture of their face, occasionally that's what happens, but not often, on the Zoom, then you tell me and I won't put them on. If it makes you feel better, these videos are stored in YouTube, but they're stored as private. So nobody can see them except people in this class. And once this class is finished, nobody else will ever see them, right? So I would hope that's enough to make you feel comfortable about it. If something hopefully disastrous happens, which doesn't, but if a streaker bursts into your house and runs around the screen 5 times, I will cut that piece of the video out before I edit it, and so you'll never see it. So if there's something happens that you would prefer not to become out there, I can easily cut it out of the video. So we're cool, right? So I'm going to do by the opt-out principle. If you don't want videos to be on Canvas, you will tell me you don't want them to be, and then I won't put them online, right? So opting out is how you're going to do this. And I don't want you to do it in front of everybody. That's totally unfair. You just shoot me an email saying, I'm uncomfortable. I don't need a reason. I'm uncomfortable with it. I will do what you want. Hopefully that won't happen, but you are totally entitled to if it does. Are we okay right now? Do we have any questions about this, the Canvas site and what I've talked about right now? You're comfortable? It's a resource. You find stuff. It's got all sorts of PDFs, homework help questions, anything I can think of, right? So hopefully that's good. Right, let's move over to the syllabus, and we'll start off with my email address, which is this one. So that's the address that you should use when you want to communicate with me. When you're doing WebAssign, there are features in WebAssign like ask your professor, ask for extensions, all sorts of things like that. Will you not use the WebAssign, please? Yes. I'm not into school mode yet. School mode, you switch off your phone. That's it off now. Apologise for that. So where was I? So don't use the ask the professor, ask extension, ask for help in WebAssign. All you should do is go to Canvas and send me an email or send me Outlook, to drobertson@olympic.edu. If you need an extension to the time to do your homework and all that stuff, that's how that's going to work. Okay. And if you do hit the buttons on WebAssign, I just don't get that message. So you might say, I'm having problems with question 14. Can you give me help? And 5 days later, I haven't answered. And you're just going to think, oh, he's not talking to me. He doesn't want to tell me. No, I never saw the question. I never saw the email, right? I'm beating a dead donkey here, aren't I? The reason I'm saying this is it seems to be for the first week, I don't know why, people use that feature and then they get all up. I guess understandably, why aren't you answering my emails? And I'm trying to avoid that. Okay, prerequisites. You need them. If you don't have them, at the end of the week, I get sent a letter saying so-and-so doesn't have the prereqs, and I bump you out of the class. I am able to change anything that I want to meet the needs of the class. What that typically will be is I may arrange to change due dates for some of the homework. In other words, I push it to the following week. I've got a list, as you'll see, when things do, and that's going to be the list I'll try and stick to. But, you know, sometimes things take longer, sometimes things go quicker. So I'm giving myself flexibility there. There's all the stuff you need, as you know. There's a site you can click, because if you don't have a mic that works, the college will give you a loaner, as long as I've got one, or earphones, or video cam, or whatever. Even a computer, I think you can borrow computers. So if yours dies on you, you could contact them. Hopefully they've got one spare. If you want to do, not that you want to, you have to do WebAssign, here is the link. And if you click on this, which I won't because it takes forever, it takes you through how to log into WebAssign. So if you've never done WebAssign, that's a good resource. There are other resources that you've got. Okay, this one, I don't need to go through everything, because anything you want to know, don't you just go here and read it yourself. But essentially what this tells you is, there's your holidays. The green things are your tests, and the other things are dates that you might find useful, like the last day you drop the class and so on. So if you're interested in when something happens, there you go. Here is the main bulk of what this class is going to look like. It's broken into weeks now. So the structure is going to be week 1, do these topics, and the homework's due on midnight of Sunday. Do these, midnight Sunday, do these, midnight Sunday. At the end of these 3 weeks, you're going to have a test, and that test is going to be on during the class time. So it's just going to be a 50-minute 1-hour test, and it's going to be on WebAssign, and it'll be just like a homework, except it'll be called test 1. And you've got 50 minutes stroke an hour to do it in. And then you do 3 more weeks and a test, 3 more weeks and a test, and then the last 2 weeks are kind of bunched together, because most of that is Thanksgiving holidays, and that's us finished. And there's your final exam. And the final exam is going to be a 3-hour one, and that will be also on WebAssign. Okay, a lot to take in there. Any questions? Okay. This is basically the learning objectives. This is don't cheat. This is if you need accommodations, tell me about them. And let's talk about points make prizes now. 20% of your grade is participation. These classes, these Zoom meetings are mandatory. You must be at them. So what you will get is, based on how much time you turn up for, you will get 20% of your grade will be based on attendance. And the way I'm going to do it, and I'm about to do it right now, is if you click on chat, you will say hi or hello or whatever you feel like saying. And I use that as attendance. So right now, I'm taking attendance. So say hi. Okay, I think that's everybody. I get 14 highs, so there must be 14 people in the class. And that's attendance. That's how it's done. Pretty easy. Now, here is a link to our class. Obviously, that's going to be good for about 2 months. Homework is on WebAssign. It's going to be 30% of your grade. Now, when you do homework, if I scroll back to here, you see how this particular homework is due on this day. If you need extra time, then you ask for an extension. And that basically says, can I get more time to finish homework assignment 9? And I will give you it. I'll give you 1 extra week to do it. But I won't give you 2. So if you haven't finished it by the end of that week, that's the end of that homework and you've lost the points. And 30% of your grade is based on, sorry, there we go. 30% of your grade is based on that. Now the tests I talked about, there's 3 of them, but I only count the 2 best. So if you have a 1 stinker, it gets thrown away and it doesn't affect your grade. So you get 2 good ones, that's all you need, but 3 would be better, just because you want to be good. Final exam takes place on a 3-hour period and it's on everything. And the extra credit this year is going to be based on homework assignments. Not how well you do in them, but if you do them on time. So every one of the 10 homework assignments, if you complete them and don't ask for an extension, you will get 0.5% extra credit. So that adds up to 5% added onto your grade at the end, if you did all of them. Right? So that's a big incentive to not just do your homework, but to do it on time. So what happens if I ask for an extension? Well, I don't take any points off you. I just don't give you the extra credit. So it's not that you will lose points if you don't do your homework in time, but do you see that you lose the opportunity to get some extra points? Does that kind of make sense? Right? So if you do your homework in time, there's an incentive here, right? So I'm giving you a carrot, I'm not beating you with a stick. That's the difference, right? But you got to do your homework. If you don't do your homework, you're going to fail the class anyway. So let's be honest about it, you know, let's be realistic. So I'm trying to encourage you to be structured. Every week, get your homework done. Every week, get your homework done, right? Every little 0.5% makes a difference, doesn't it, at the end? Then you add it all up and you get a grade, which is whatever, 2.0, I hope. Hope it's 4.0, but pass at least. That's what it looks like as a letter grade. Places you can go, Canvas support, all the usual things to be successful. Come to class, pay attention, ask questions, send me emails when you get stuck in homework so I can help you. Look at the resources, do everything that's good. And don't do your homework at 9 p.m. on a Sunday night and think you're going to be finished by 12, because you probably won't. And even if you are, I don't think you'll be successful. The best way to find out, are you understanding the work, is I might be doing a lesson and it makes sense and you nod and say, I can do that. But there are 2 reasons why you should do homework. And the first one is to check if you're really understanding the work. See, it makes sense, and then you do the homework and then you suddenly realize, oh, maybe I don't understand this concept as well as I thought. So the homework is an indication that maybe you haven't picked it up as good as you should. And that gives you, okay, I'll watch some of the other videos. I might watch the same video that he did again. Maybe I didn't pick something up. I'll send him an email, whatever it takes. And that is the first reason. And the second reason for homework is, well, my analogy is that you don't get good at playing a violin by watching me play a violin. You get good at a violin by practicing yourself. That's what homework is. It's practice, right? It's getting you good at something by doing it repetitively, right? Doing it lots of times, seeing it from different angles. So homework is a valuable part of the learning process. It's not that, oh God, I've got homework to do and I wish I hadn't, although I know the feeling. It's important. So do it. And the usual things you can read. Any questions about the syllabus? You're a very quiet lot. Okay. Guess that's a good sign. So that's Canvas finished. Talked about it. Anything that you haven't got or picked up, you know, you can always replay this video and see what you said about homework or read it or whatever. Okay, I'm now going to move on to our homework in WebAssign. This is where all the homework lives. This is where your tests are going to live. All the things that you get graded. Now, when you start WebAssign, you might be using, I think it's 7 days, but people keep telling me different numbers. I don't know if it's WebAssign, just keeps changing it. But you can log in at the beginning and you can get like a free trial. Have any of you saw that? Anybody want to tell me off the top of their head? Can you remember how many free days they gave you if you used the free trial thing?
The free trial ends on the 27th. For me, I got it today, so it's going to be like a week.
Okay, so WebAssign is giving you about a week if you log in today, right? At the end of that time, they'll tell you to pay, or else they'll, you know. So it's an added expense. I hope you're aware of that expense. The plus is you do get an ebook, so you don't need to buy the textbook. So, you know, it's a little bit of a benefit. If you have financial issues, SING, S-I-N-G, Olympic College, S-I-N-G, SING, Students in Need Grant. Talk to them, email them, you know, Zoom meeting, whatever is communication, and they can very often help, right? If your circumstances warrant it, they can, I've been told they'll pay, sometimes they'll pay for the license, right, to use WebAssign if you need the money or you need the help rather than the money. Okay, so look at the resources like that as well if you need. So let's see what we can see here. Can you look on the right-hand side? Do you see these 3 topics are due this Sunday? And you see these 3 are due the next. I could have put on every single homework, but that would be overwhelming and scary. So I think it's easier only to see what you need to see right now. So isn't the only things you need to see are the stuff you need to get done this week, which is getting started in these 2, and then next week's these ones. So if you want to work a little bit ahead, you can do that. But if nothing else, make sure you get these done by Sunday. And then next week, these will be the only ones visible, and I'll put in week 3s. So at any given time, you'll only be looking at what you need to do this week, and if you want to work ahead a little bit, what's due the following week, so that you've got a little bit of a, you know, if you know something is happening in the future and you want to get a little bit of homework out the way, you could do it. Are we good so far? Now, some of you have taken classes like this, you know, I've taken my class before. So let me just go into WebAssign and kind of show you what it looks like. Don't worry about what the questions are, because you may or may not know what the answers are. But let's suppose, let's pick one of my numbers. Right, let's suppose I'm answering this question and I think the answer is 34. I'm just making a number up. You type in 34. If they want the answer to be to 2 decimal places, then you 34.12, you know, something like that. So if whatever it is, write it down and you are good. Now, you put in your answers, whatever they might be, and then once you've got all the answers, you hit submit answer. And if it's right, you get a lovely little green check mark and you're good to go. And if it's wrong, you get a big red X and you get 5 shots to do it. And if you haven't got it by the end of the 4th one, that might be a good point for you to shoot me an email and say, I ain't getting this one right. What am I doing wrong? And you've got to remember, this is a computer software package. It's not a human being. And so sometimes the mistake is so trivial, a normal human being wouldn't even notice it. We would say, yeah, I know what you meant, they're fine. It says to 2 decimal places and you put the answer to 1. Or it says it wants a fraction and you gave it as a decimal, right? So whatever. It can be, at times it can be pernickety that way. And so just be careful to read exactly what it wants so that you're answering it, right? What else do you get? Well, if you hit the read it box, it will tell you something like this, at least. It'll take you to the ebook and give you an example of it. If you hit that, you can practice another version, right? Which will be a similar version to that question, but with different numbers. And you can practice on that one until you're getting the right answers. And then once you've got the right answers, you can go back to this one and then do it. So maybe, that's a suggestion. There's a read it one. There should be some ones with videos, but I can't seem to find one right now. Okay.
So the one above the example has a watch it to it.
Okay, so occasionally you have a video, and you can watch it. And a lot of people like to see things, right, visually, so they like videos. So that's kind of how WebAssign works. And it's got lots of other features which are up to you, how much you want to use or not. And there is an example of the button I do not want you to press. See that guy? I do not know where that goes, but can you trust me? It doesn't go anywhere where I can find it. It certainly doesn't get sent to my email address. So when you think, oh yeah, I'm not going to get this done by Sunday, I need a week, I need some time, you just shoot me an email and say, I need some time, and I will fix it, right? So that's what an extension is. I don't know where the other ones are, but isn't there buttons like Ask Your Professor hidden somewhere as well? If you've been in there, don't use that button either. Homework, home. What your test look like? Your test is going to look like homework. It's just going to be called test 1. And you do it in the same way with an extra little bit of you send me your working for those few questions that you should show working for. Are we good? Oh, any questions? This is went the fastest yet. This is the quickest I've ever done today. Last chance. Are we good? No more questions then? Well, you can certainly ask me any questions you like. So let's jump right into that topic. I'm just getting myself. Right, so this one I'm looking at here is chapter 2. I'm just getting the heading. And we're going to be looking at types of variables, and the two major types, which are called categorical and quantitative. So let's show you what this looks like. I tend to do everything on what I call my white screen, which is essentially this fella here. And we're going to look at types of what are called variables, types of data would be another heading for that. Before I do that, let's give you an example of how you can be given information in a form that might not be accurate. So I like this story, totally made up. You might not know this, but Seattle police are racist against Scottish people. And a politician gets on the news and starts saying how racist the Seattle police are. They don't hire Scottish people on their police force. They don't like them. They're racist. They hate Scottish people. And the evidence that they gave is that only 2% of the police in Seattle are of Scottish ancestry. That's all they were told. Is that evidence that the police in Seattle don't like Scottish people? It's a very small number, isn't it? Only 2% of the police force are Scottish. For some of you, that might be convincing, but it's not accurate unless you know other information. This is why in this class, this is the kind of thing I want you to question. What other information do I need before I can decide whether or not the police in Seattle don't like Scottish people? I need some more information. Any suggestions? What would I need to know?
Number of applicants that are of Scottish descent.
That would certainly be useful. Right? Connected to that, I'm not saying that's wrong because that's a good answer. How about just the percentage of people who live in Seattle that are Scottish? So let's suppose that only 1% of Seattle is Scottish. If 1% of Scottish is Seattle and 2% are in the police force, isn't that evidence that the police force are favourable to Scottish people? In fact, they're hiring them at twice the rate they should be. Wouldn't you expect the police force to have roughly 1% of them Scottish? Because that's 1% of the population is Scottish, right? That would be a balance. If it was 2%, wouldn't that be exactly what you'd expect? On the other hand, if it was 10%, wouldn't that be more proof? So if 10% of Seattle was Scottish people, but only 2% of them got into the police force, wouldn't there be some evidence that there's something going on here that's not good? So do you see how the initial figure could be interpreted in 3 different ways, depending on this extra piece of information? Right, and I'm saying, suppose the extra piece of information ended up being this, or being this. If it was this, it'd be okay, wouldn't it? It'd be exactly what you expect. If it was this, there'd be a proof of some kind of bias, right? They don't like Scottish people. And if it was this, there'd be proof that they're favouring Scottish people more than others. Don't know an awful lot about American history, but I believe, wasn't there a point in time where if you lived in Boston, the only way it was only Irish people who would be the police in Boston? I'm putting that forward as a kind of half exaggerated situation. Can you see in a place like that, that would be biased in favour of one group? Obviously, when you favour one group, don't you, because of the numbers, aren't you biased against the other groups? So information on its own needs to have a foundation to make a valid description. So this is a kind of one of the reasons we want you to be looking at your data in the future. We're going to show you what's good data and what's data that you should be wary of. And to start, right back at the beginning then, there are 2 kinds of major types of data. Data is just what we call in statistics information. Information can be anything. It could be your age. It could be your favorite color. It could be the last place you went on holiday, right? Whatever it might be. Anything that you've collected is data. And it breaks down into 2 major categories, 2 major groups. The ones that are quantitative, these are basic client numbers. And this would be things like you collected the ages of people, you collected their height, you collected the number of coins in their pocket. I'm running short of ideas. Chuck an idea at me. Give me a number that could be quantitative. Give me something you collected that could be
Salary?
a number. Salary, right? How much you make? That would be an example. Anything else? One more, just for looking fun and giggles.
Cholesterol levels.
Say again?
Cholesterol levels.
Wow, medical. Cool. I can't spell cholesterol. Spell it for me. Is it CH? Oh,
I guess.
yeah, we'll call it that. You can spell check it later. Cholesterol. Don't know why CH looks wrong, but maybe it is and maybe it isn't. Anything that's basically a number that has a meaning to it is considered to be quantitative, right? Now, what is categorical? Well, that kind of is the rest. Categorical is information that is typically not numbers, but there is exceptions to that. The kind of examples would be, you could ask someone what their favorite color was, right? You could ask them what was the last TV program that they watched. You could ask them the name of their mother, right? These can be considered categorical. Anybody want to chuck some more in? I'll say colour of hair. I've changed that question, right?
Make a model of car.
Oh, good one. What about you? Make a car, model your car. Right. One more that counts as categorical.
Favorite dog breed?
Oh, good one. What is your favourite dog breed? Do you have one?
I like mutts, if that counts.
They count. We have Westies. That's our thing. Although we had a rat terrier, but she passed away. Right. So, are we comfortable in our brain then that if I said, here is some data that you could put it into one of these two camps, right? So if I went and said to you, I collected data and it was the country you'd like to visit, would you agree that belongs in categorical? If I went and said to you, how many siblings do you have? Would you agree that would go into the quantitative category, right? So these are distinguishing groups. Would you agree that it's quite easy to tell the difference, right? So let me muddy the water. There is certain information that superficially looks like numbers. It looks like it's quantitative, but it's actually categorical. And you might say, well, how on earth could that happen? Sometimes the number isn't really what it is. The number is just a code for what it is. I'll give you an example of a really special case. Would you agree telephone numbers are numbers and therefore would belong, you would think, in the quantitative camp, right? But telephone numbers are not truly numbers. They're just codes that allow you to phone people. In fact, can't you phone people by 1-800, I can't do it, Freddie or something? You notice that sometimes they give you phone numbers because they spell out things, because don't you have on phones letters of the alphabet for each of the digits? Can you see that's a code? So if you want to say to yourself, how do I know if I've got one of these? Because they don't happen a lot and it's kind of red herring, but I want you to be aware of it. You ask yourself one simple question. And that question is, does the average, and by that I really mean the mean, does the average, the mean of these numbers, because it might not really be, make any sense? Give you an idea. Suppose I collected the jersey number of 10 random people who play for the Seahawks team, right? So number 3 was Wilson, right? And various, all right? So I just got the jersey number and I collected 10 of them. Wouldn't the average of those 10 numbers be 18.1? Would the average number on a professional football's jersey tell you anything useful? No. That's because aren't the numbers on the jerseys just codes so you know who's who? Couldn't they have put A, B, C, and you'd be saying, you know, player A has just joined and player D has just left? Couldn't they do that? Because they've done letters. In fact, don't they? Maybe not. I think it's only in Britain. There's a game called netball that girls play typically. Don't know if you know the game. And in netball, you don't have numbers, you have your position. So on the back, there's a 2-letter code that you're a defensive right or a defensive left, I think, and things like that. So that's an example. Another one, suppose you took the telephone numbers of every single person in this room, right, this Zoom room. See if you found the average of them. Would the average mean anything? Would the average telephone number be anything? No, it'd just be a weird decimal that tells you nothing, right? So 99.99% of the time, if it's a number, it's quantitative. But isn't there a couple of grey areas where codes can be used? And if you recognize it as a code, it belongs in the categorical, right? Just throwing that little red herring out there. In categorical, there is a branch. There are 2 versions of categorical. Ordinal and not ordinal is one of them. There are different names in different textbooks. And you might think, well, how do we distinguish between these? So you've got a categorical data, and sometimes, just sometimes, the data has a natural order to it. Most of the time, there is no order. So if I went and said to you, for instance, and I always get this wrong, sophomore, we've got senior, we've got junior, I think it's freshman, right? Is that the right order? Do you go freshman, sophomore, junior, senior? Would that be the right order? Right.
Yes.
Let's suppose I collected data on some high school students and I just found out where they were. And somebody says I'm a junior, somebody says I'm a sophomore, right? And wouldn't my data just consist of sophomore, junior, junior, senior, senior, junior, sophomore, you know, freshman, right? That's what it would look like. Definitely categorical. But would you agree that there is a natural order that you would put things into? And because of that, we call them ordinal categorical, right? They're categorical, but they're in the subgroup ordinal, right? So you can put them in some kind of order. Would you agree that the month that you were born in, right, a January, February, would you agree they are categorical data? January, February, March, right? Isn't that also ordinal? January, then February, then March. Can't you put them in order, right? If I said to you, what's your favorite color, right? If I collected that data, wouldn't the answer be red, blue, green, yellow? Can you put those colors in any normal, sensible order? No. So they count as not ordinal, right? So we're comfortable with the concept that although it's categorical data, there are 2 flavors of categorical, right? There's the ones that have some kind of order, and there's the ones that, you know, jumble them up, they don't matter. Okay, so has anybody throw at me an ordinal version of categorical data? Something that's categorical but has an order to it. They're normally the hardest ones to find.
Satisfaction,
Right.
poor to happy.
Yeah. Hate it, don't hate it a lot, don't care, like it a lot. Would you agree there's a natural order? It doesn't matter if you go up or down. Is there an order? And if you can say it is, that's it. Actually, the one you just mentioned there is called the Likert scale. It's very often a 5-scale thing from one extreme to the other, with right in the middle, don't care, right? That's very often done in polls where they ask you things like, do you think the government's doing a good job? And at one end, definitely not. Next they're not doing a great job. No. Middle, about average. Yeah, doing a good job. Yeah, they're doing a great. You know, that kind of from horrible to good kind of version. That would be good example of ordinal data. I'm pushing it now because it's hard to come up with ones that are ordinal. Has anybody got one more that's ordinal?
Maybe like related.
Seasons, I like that one. I heard that one. Somebody was saying something else, but I didn't catch it.
Oh, like we were discussing the make or model of a car, maybe based on years, there'd be an order.
Oh, so you could have a car and when they came out, so the order you could put them in is the model of the car in the year. So a Model T Ford would go first, and I don't know what the brand new hybrid's called, but a brand new hybrid go last. Yeah, you could do that because the data is categorical, but you could order it according to the year that they were first produced. Yeah. So you got the idea, ordinal. Non-ordinal is dead easy. Isn't that everybody else? Right. If you can't put it in order, right? If I said to you, what's the name of your children? Would you agree you can't really put them in any distinct order, except the obvious one of alphabetical? But can't everything be put in alphabetical order? So we don't really count that. Would you get everything that's categorical? You could say, well, I'll put it in alphabetical order. But the order has to have some structure to it, right? It has to have some meaning, right? Or it doesn't count. So no ordinal would be dog breeds. Favorite TV show? I don't think you could put them in order really very easily. I guess you could put them in the order that they appeared: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, perhaps. So what about quantitative data? Can that be split up? Yes, it can. And the category, I wish I didn't say category because it makes me think of this. The way that we split this is you can have continuous data, and there's different words for this, but the one I'm going to use is discrete. So numbers can be continuous or they can be discrete. So how do we split them? I'll give you examples of discrete. Discrete has to be numbers that you can only get fixed values for. You can't get the ones in between. So an example of a discrete set of data would be your number of children in your family. Well, you might have no children, 1 child, 2 child, 3 child, 4 child. Would you agree that you don't get 1.2 children in your family? In real life, you don't get 1.2, right? That would count as discrete data. Agreed? Right. How about if I went and said to you, your weight, right? So some days 150, the next one 160, the next person 161, the next person 163, right? These are the kind of numbers you get. This is continuous. How can I distinguish between discrete and the continuous? I ask myself one question. Can I get numbers between these two? Well, you could say, well, you could get 151, which I agree you could. But couldn't you also get 150.112 if you weighed yourself on a very accurate set of scales? Can you see that you don't just get this number and this number, but can you theoretically at least get every number between it, right? So if you can answer that question of, yes, I can get all the numbers between 1 and 2 and anything in between it, that's continuous. If you can say, I can only get 1 or 2 and nothing else between it, then you're looking at discrete. Okay, so let's hit you with some discrete and continuous. Be careful, because some of these are trick questions in a way. Is your age continuous or discrete?
Discrete.
Correct. Now, how do we normally give our ages? Well, we normally say I'm 42 or 31 for convenience. But technically speaking, aren't you 31.1233776? if you add the days and the weeks and the seconds from the moment you were born? Can you at least theoretically give your age to as many decimal places as you wanted? How about your height? Continuous or discrete?
And I would consider that discrete because there's only at some point you stop growing, right?
Oh, well, yeah, you stop growing, but when they measure that stopped growing height, couldn't that number that we use be infinitely accurate if we wanted to? You see what I'm getting at? Let's do it a different way. Couldn't you be 62 inches or 63 inches? But couldn't you also be any number between 62 and 63? Couldn't you be 62.12 inches or 62.1234 inches? Now, people say, well, you'll get to the size of an atom. Well, we don't, that's just being lawyer-esque. Continuous is, if you pick two numbers that are next to each other, can you fill in the gap? If there's numbers in that gap, you're continuous. If you can pick two numbers that are next to each other, but that's it, there's nothing left, you're looking at discrete. Okay, coins in your pocket. Discrete. Would you agree you get 8 coins, you've got 9 coins? Nobody here is going to tell me they've got 8.1 coins in their pocket because they're lying, aren't they? Right? You've got 8 coins in your pocket, you've got 9 coins. Do you see the difference between the discrete and the continuous? Ask yourself, can you get a number between 2 consecutive values? Salary, you've got to be sneaky on this one. What do you think?
I think continuous.
I understand that, and I would agree with you. If someone had said, I think discrete, I would agree with you. Because I think salary is one of those kind of, it depends on what you mean by your salary. You may think, well, that's pretty obvious what I mean. Well, it can be. If I want to call it discrete, don't you get paid $1,212.43, right? Don't they stop at the cents? Nobody gets a check with 43 and an extra digit, right? You don't get checks after cents, don't they become cents? So if you were thinking salary that way, I would be thinking of it as discrete. But have you ever been to a gas station and they tell you that the price of gasoline is $3.19.999? Haven't they gone beyond the cents and given you 0.99, so it's not quite right? You know, they do that weird thing where they use decimals on you. I guess if you thought salary that way, it would have to be thought of continuous. I would never give you a question that is a grey area one, because you could argue either way. Thankfully, most situations are definitely one or the other. So why don't you, to finish off, and then we'll do a couple of closing points, give me an example of something you're pretty confident is continuous.
Space.
I didn't catch that word.
Space. How much distance between spaces?
Oh, gotcha, right, distance. I thought you said face, and I'm thinking I couldn't see that. Yeah, the distance between 2 places is continuous, right? You could measure it to any accuracy you like. Okay, give me a discrete.
How many apples you may have in your basket.
Okay, how many students are in this class? How many people you're going to say hi to today? Right, things like that would all count as discrete, wouldn't they?